plant here. I think we need to move away from burning carbon fuels, fossil fuels for sure. And we need to find another way to make more electricity here in the Niagara region.
It was interesting to be at the meeting and to listen to the presentations, but also just the fact that the council was unanimous in its decision was something that I thought was a good sign. Not everybody voted no for the same reason, but it was a good sign that there was unanimity on that.
So, Mr. Chair, we're ready when you are.
Okay, thanks, Justin. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 10:03 a.m. I'm going to read the Land Acknowledgement Act. The City of Thorold is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattawattanrat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The City of Thorold stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. I'll move on to item 3 now. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, I'll move on to item 4, adoption of the agenda. Before I get a mover on that, I would, there was something I missed that I should have put on the agenda. I would like to amend the agenda to add the Lakeview Cemetery tree planting initiative that was undertaken by Councillor O'Hare and Kerry Royer from the MPCA. I would like that to be added to our committee business. So if I can get a motion on that, please.
So moved.
Okay. And seconder?
I'll second that to approve the amended agenda.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Seeing none, that's carried. Okay, we'll add that to the last list of committee business items that we'll get back to. Okay, moving on to item number 5, adoption of the minutes from the September 1st, 2023 meeting. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Okay, Linda, and a seconder. Councillor O'Hare, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Okay. We do have a new committee member, but what I'm going to do is we've got a presenter that probably is a very busy person. So I'll let the presentation proceed, and after the presentation, I'll introduce the new committee member. I'm going to call on Enrico Di Cesare. Is that how you pronounce that?
You know what? Enrico's good enough, but if you
Okay,
want
thank you very much.
proper pronunciation,
Yeah.
whenever there's a C followed by a vowel, any Italian, it sounds like an S. So
Okay, great.
more like a CH to be exact. So it's Di Cesare, but you know
Okay,
what? There's
Cesare.
not a million Enricos, so that's good enough.
Yeah, well, people have a problem with my name too, so I get it. Enrico is from EVSX, they're seeking an endorsement from council regarding establishing a battery recycling facility in Niagara. There was an attachment to our agenda package. I hope everybody had a chance to read it. So I'm going to now turn over the meeting to Enrico.
Okay, thank you. Nice to meet all of you. For those who don't know me, which is all of you at this point, I lived in the area a long time ago, between 97 and 2010. I've dealt with the steel industry for a long time, and probably worked at every single steel plant at least once for their strategic projects. Never had a reason to stop in Thorold, but I do now. And the infrastructure from some of the old legacy plants fits well with what we're trying to do. I've recently moved back, in case you think I'm not here, actually around the corner somewhere, probably very close to many of you. So what we're doing, I don't know how much or I go and present it, but I know there was a slide deck I sent, which was a quick summary. For those who don't know, what does Canada do for battery recycling today? So they encourage collection, of course. There's a hidden fee for battery recycling that each one of us pays for. We hear a lot of news about lithium iron phosphate and all those other types of batteries. What a lot of people don't know is 80% of the batteries collected so far are alkaline. They put the lead aside, and so everything that kids, grandkids use, those toys generally are alkaline batteries, those AAA, AA's. Right now, the only type of real recycling being done in Canada is to shred those, make pearls like what we're used to with our grass. You spin it and it spreads on the grass for fertilizer. And it's supposed to be a support to micronutrients. There's a lot more to fertilizer than that. What we all know is phosphate, nitrogen, potassium over some, right? What people don't know is the micronutrients like manganese, zinc, and those other things that go into that. Coincidentally, alkaline batteries are in the form of MnO2. That does get absorbed by plants. MnO, if it was put in that form, would not be absorbed by a plant. It would be just like landfill in a farmer's field, for example. Okay, I'm not talking about what people are doing. I'm just giving you the facts. Okay, so zinc is one of them, and then the other one, that's the electrolyte. Like if you ever smashed an alkaline battery, you'd see there's a liquid coming out. That's actually potassium hydroxide, which fits into the fertilizer category. Okay. Then from there, you've got the lithium iron phosphate type batteries. You got the nickel cadmium batteries and so on. What people don't know is that right now they do get collected, nickel cadmium, but we're actually shipping them to France, okay, to be processed. And this is just between us, but I had a chance to audit 2 facilities, one in Quebec and one in Hamilton, who was doing the sorting. And, it's basically like fruit picking, when you're taking out the bad fruit and the line goes, well, you're taking out everything that's not alkaline batteries, okay? The batteries, what was surprising to me was they were actually shipping batteries all the way from Vancouver to be sorted in Hamilton, okay? Which really doesn't make a lot of sense. So our strategy is a little different, is that you break down the batteries by category after you've sorted them, and you only move the black mass, the part where the critical minerals are, to the right locations. So it doesn't matter if it's for fertilizer or for lithium recovery or for nickel recovery, and you only move those weights instead of a lot of batteries with a lot of air and space. So for everybody, most of the other batteries, the electrolytes, you need to do extra special work with them, okay? Because you'll have fluorides, you'll have chlorine, all things that are not good for our health, let's say, if you didn't collect it properly, okay? Every operation, if you do it right, is good. Alkaline is a little easier, so that's why Canada adopted that one. Now, when we go to the next stage, what we're looking to do is, one, to start with what everybody's doing, which is processing the 80%. But from that, we want to make more value-added fertilizers that are actually optimized for the region. And it'll be a model that would be copied in Quebec. Again, it goes by population. Batteries is urban mining. It's not about resources. The only difference that we have compared to others is that we've also accounted for gaps with resources. The processing plant can actually use resources to go to the next stages. So I'll give you an example. If we do ferromanganese with biomass, so for some of you, you might be aware of Chartec in the region. That's not super new to make biomass. What is newer is to use the biomass to make ferroalloys or pig iron, okay? And that would be a logical next step. I've been talking to the steel plants in the area as well. Some of them have been in the news for wanting to close down their blast furnaces. All that infrastructure could be reused with char and even battery materials, as well as the ring of fire materials. For those who don't know, you know about a little stainless facility in Welland who does long products. What people don't know is we actually have zero flat stainless production since the one in Quebec closed down in Canada, zero. And even back in the old days, in the 90s, I'm dating myself now, but as the young engineer that came in, all my steel was going to Ontario for the automotive industry. Even the belt buckles were coming from Quebec to be punched and then go to the auto assembly plants. We have zero of that. That's all coming from outside of Canada today. It doesn't make a lot of sense when you think about all the resources we have. This links it. Okay? So I've successfully done ferromanganese with char, ferronickel with char, stainless pig with char, and I've done it with resources. Okay, those are the next stages. You got to walk before you run. And the first stage was collecting batteries, sorting them, making the fertilizer. Next stage was the lithium types, and then the ferroalloy types. Now, in all fairness, you've all heard of spodumene or lithium developments in Ontario and Quebec. For those who don't know, Quebec spent probably $4 billion to date and has no lithium hydroxide production. Okay. When I say Quebec, spent in the province. Okay. Irrelevant who paid for it. And the main reason was they went with sulfuric acid. Okay. As a rule of thumb, whatever you put in, you end up with 3 times. So for 20,000 tons of lithium hydroxide, which was your objective here, if you used Quebec spodumene and eventually Ontario spodumene, you need 150,000 tons. But your residue is 450,000 tons. So it doesn't take a genius. You don't have to be a chemist to understand if you went from 150 coming in, 5.84% Li2O, and you have 450,000 tons going to landfill, why that's costly, okay? And that's why these processes failed. What was done was basing it on a different approach, and the waste streams are fertilizer as well. Okay, so it's a nitric acid. Patents have been filed, and it's been very successful. The nice thing about it is once I have the saturated solution, I'm only working with water. I can show you a video of the crystals growing if that was of interest, but it won't do anything because you'd have to take my word for what was going on. But honestly, what you do is you take the crystals out. They don't have the right purity. You put the same amount of water back in. You drop a few crystals in, and it restarts the process. So it's a much greener approach. The main concept that's different is nitric acid is a passivator when you're like close to 70%. So it's not as aggressive as hydrochloric acid or sulfuric acid. And that helps reduce the amount of impurities that go into solution. It really only attacks the alkaline metals. And for layman's terms, everything you find in salt water. Okay, so that's where the genius, even though it was by fluke, the genius of the idea comes from. So it'll put the lithium in solution. It'll put magnesium, which is also needed for fertilizer, in solution. And the waste streams all go to combinations of fertilizer. That would be what we would look at as phase 2. For those who don't know, the lithium concentrates, even in Ontario, are being shipped to China. Okay, so why not have it locally if you can do it in a green, in a professional way? Irrelevant if it's mine or not, just so you all know it's going to China. You can talk to the logistics companies. And the same thing is happening in Quebec, even after $4 billion. They're sending the concentrates to China. Now we know about the revolution. Lithium iron phosphate batteries. I don't know how much you know about them, but I'm going to give it to you simple. You know, the little button batteries that everybody's used to for your watch or your wear? It's really almost all aluminum foil. So you have aluminum sheets, you have this lithium iron phosphate with 4 oxygens and 35% graphite painted on, and they pile them up and it goes through a punch. Okay. So when you're recycling lithium iron phosphate batteries, the black mass is only 5% of the total weight. So you shouldn't be moving those types of batteries from Vancouver all the way to Hamilton to be sorted. You should be just moving the black mass, for example, okay, if you were going to process them here. The other problem is just, I'm not going to go into the periodic table, but lithium is one of the lightest metals in all of that, right? It's 6.94. Everything else is substantially more heavier. Even oxygen is 16. So if I tell you LiFePO4, 35% graphite, it's only 5% of the black mass. Very little lithium is in those batteries. So the best processing method is actually to combine them with the resources. So that's the gist of where I'm going. I see it as a complement to the region with the activities that are already going on, like Chartec, which is why I reached out to the steel plants who need to reduce their CO2 emissions. For those of you who have heard of how bad the steel industry is, steel represents 7% of the world's CO2. The other 7% is cement, which can all be complementary. Why can't you use electric arc furnace slag in cement? It's acidic. Why can you use a blast furnace slag in cement? It's basic. It's overly simplistic, but that gives you an idea. So the right solution for CO2 is a number of items, okay? I don't want to touch everything because it's a lot of technical things, but that's the basics, okay? So anybody who's driven around Montreal, which is a great example of having built bridges the wrong way in the old days, you'll see all the rebar rusting everywhere. And imagine if the cement was actually acidic, how bad that would have been. So that gives you an idea of why certain things are used. So what we see is a solution that's complementary, but also can be a catalyst for the resources that we have in Ontario, be it nickel in Sudbury and the Ring of Fire that people have been talking about. And I don't want to say what will happen, but if you do have liquid ferronickel or liquid stainless pig, the odds of attracting someone who wants to do something more with it are pretty high, right? So I see the potential of having that because you actually need it with the auto industry. So the starting point, alkaline batteries. We want to evolve to the lithium and we want to evolve to the ferroalloys, but with always a green way. All the modeling shows a negative CO2. For those who don't know, even the ferronickel in the world with the current styles of production is 33 tons of CO2. So even though you're importing it today, it's coming with a tag of CO2 of 33 tons per ton. Indonesia is the largest exporter. They don't have green electricity. In Quebec, 99% of the electricity is basically hydropower. You can call that green. A lot of that is green in Ontario too. Not everybody's like that. And a lot of people don't know that there's 33 tons of CO2. As bad as the carbon steel industry, I think in Canada, you're probably closer to 1.8 tons of CO2 per ton of steel. So it gives you an idea of what's going on with all those things. So that's really where I'm at. I didn't want to embarrass any of the steel guys that I've been talking to, but they received my presentation really well. So I'll let you ask questions because I know I probably gave you too much information to a degree, and I prefer to answer that because I was just trying to give you the basics of rules of thumb of real life and what you see around you. But I don't know if I successfully did that or confused everybody.
Okay, thank you very much, Enrico. That was that's interesting. You know, it can glaze your eyes over a bit when you've been out of school for so long and you know.
Yeah, I apologize for that, but you know, like the simplest one is when you see the bridges being redone in Quebec. They were the only ones that had that standard in North America. For those who don't know,
Yeah.
now they're following the standard that's here, but a lot of people don't realize that CO2 can be a combination of things, right? So you can offset every ton of slag offsets 1 ton of CO2 to cement, if the right form, right? Then the byproduct gas can displace natural gas, which also reduces CO2. Every 10 gigajoules of synthetic gas, for you guys, you can write this down, you can take it to the bank. It's 1,224 kilos of CO2, or 1.224 tons of CO2 that can be displaced as well. So a lot of people don't realize all of the things of how you could become negative. So if you're doing char, you're actually negative CO2. So you're really contributing. So that's where we are. I didn't want to criticize the industries, but I thought it was important for people to understand that we're not really producing lithium hydroxide in Canada. Doesn't matter which province you're in. We're shipping it to China right now, and we're trying to find solutions. We have the solution, and we also have the battery recycling solution.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to open up the meeting to comments or questions that any of the committee members may have. I see Councillor O'Hare with his hand up.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Enrico, for your presentation. Lots of good information there, that's for sure. I just wanted to ask you, and I have to say, Joe, I'm not sure if I received that attachment at all. I printed out the information and I somehow didn't see it. So if I ask a question that was in that attachment, forgive me for it.
No problem.
But the question is, Enrico, what are you hoping to do here in Niagara? Are you already set up from a business point of view? Are you hoping to develop? And where are you thinking of doing this? And what sort of time?
Okay.
That's a lot of questions. Thanks.
No. I don't think I put that in the presentation. So this is good. So this part is, we picked the old pulp and paper mill area, okay, for a few reasons. One, I wanted to simplify logistics, be it by rail or by port.
Mhm.
I also wanted extra, not that I need them today, but I always think ahead, extra rail lines that you can store rail cars and things like that. The equipment, believe it or not, has already arrived. There's $6 million worth of equipment. And we would be the best equipped facility in all of Ontario, Canada, for breaking down batteries into their components. We'll be much closer to over 97% recovery of all material. So let's get the boring stuff out of the way. You would collect the steel, the aluminum, the plastic, the copper. Many are not collecting some of these other things. Okay, so if you go to the Hamilton facility or you go to the one in Quebec, they are not recovering those things. The other part of it is the black masses. Because you're doing proper sorting, you will have black mass that would go specifically to each production line. That's the starting point, and I'm more than happy to walk everybody through. You'll see quite a bit of equipment ready to install, all pre-assembled. Because of my supplier was forced to commission it before shipping it, I could actually show you how everything got sorted properly in the equipment, because they didn't bother to clean it before shipping it to me. So I can stick my hand in and I can show you plastic, and I can stick my hand in another place and show you aluminum. But that's how we would do it. And I'd show you all the other things that have been purchased as well.
Thank you, Enrico. So I'm assuming that's at the Hayes Dana plant. Is that where you're established now?
Yeah. So we were looking at the facility where the old pulp and paper mill was originally. but it would have required quite a bit of demolition. The alkaline lines are a little easier because you don't have any of these, how do I say this nicely? The electrolytes that make the battery work are not nice if you don't put more sophisticated equipment, right? So, and I need a certain height, and and it takes quite a bit of length to do this. So the more sophisticated lines are 140 meters long, 7.5 meters high, and 13.5 meters wide. Okay, so I have 3 lines right now in Thorold ready to install and commission. The reason we needed to put a furnace in, which a lot of people don't talk about, is how do you manage when you shred a battery to get those fumes to go in the right place? You need activated carbon, you need fume scrubbers, you need all of that. But the furnace concentrates all of that. You won't find a furnace in some of the other facilities you visit, and I'm more than happy to show you how big this equipment is and how it's pre-assembled. I think you're all pretty close by there. It takes 15 minutes to see it all.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
Just last question, Joe, if I may. Did you need special licensing to establish this business and get it running? And are you running?
No,
at present? I don't
no.
assume.
When I met with the Environment Canada group, they felt that we were the most complete application. You know, right now the standard, and I'm not trying to criticize anybody, I'm just telling you what the standard in Ontario is. It's 80% recovery, okay? That bar is pretty low. We'll be at over 97.
97?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Enrico.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'd be most interested in taking a tour on this just for the learning experience.
And let's not forget John has been raising his hand, but yes,
Yes.
I'm more than happy to take all of you there. We can just organize it. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, thanks. And I have seen John like waving. Go ahead, John. You've got some questions.
Oh, John, you're on mute. You have to hit the unmute button. There we go.
How did I get on mute? How did I get on mute? Sorry about that. I did receive the presentation, so I read through it a couple of times. I have a couple of what are probably really basic questions. So hydrometallurgy, is that the process that you will be using with all of this, or is it pyrometallurgic?
Okay, so that's an excellent question. So before I answer it, I'm just going to let you know that everybody has all different types of batteries, including what you're using on your computer. Often your computer might be nickel, cobalt, manganese types. You know, your kids use the alkaline when they're playing with your grandkids. Then you have the lithium iron phosphate that we hear about all the time in the news. That unfortunately, each type of battery requires a different strategy, okay? So stage 1, we would be recovering the 80% of the batteries that are collected, which are alkaline, and they would be going to fertilizer, okay? And we're working with the blends to optimize crops without changing things. Long term, we want to have a hydrometallurgical facility for some of the others. So the nickel, cobalt, manganese, that would be hydrometallurgy in a green way. For those who follow the news a bit, I just had Italians visiting that were recovering all those metals with orange peels, believe it or not. And we got some nice videos when they were running that through our lab in Quebec, and I had nice pictures of them. We have our own process. We're not attached to any one process. We're open to whatever's greenest and most economical, And that's why we started talking with the Italians. So that's part of our growth strategy too. The other part is there is pyrometallurgy. So we can take even alkaline batteries and turn them into ferromanganese. With a negative CO2, we use char. We can do the same with nickel cadmium, which is currently going to France, for those who don't know. And we can do the same for some other ones. So what we did recently is we even took nickel resources, iron resources, and chromium resources and made stainless pig. And then I checked to see if it worked with the nickel cadmium batteries, and that worked as well. Okay, and we did it always with char, just so we're all on the same page. Okay, so that's kind of where we are with that. So the right answer is each battery will have its own strategy, but the starting point, and we'll be talking about all the other ones after we have time for that, is the alkaline, which is the intention of 97% recovery of all the materials or better, and sorting. Stage 2, we'll have a chance to talk about the other types of battery lines and preparation, as well as be it pyro hydrometallurgy, which I have not applied for yet. So you'll have lots of time to critique or support down the road for those, but just so you know, we're doing it in the right way.
So just to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. So the initially it will be alkaline batteries. That'll be a pyrometallurgic process.
No pyro there. It'll be shredding, separating. I'll have plastic, copper, steel, and the black mass going to fertilizer.
And the black mass going to fertilizer is treated in some way?
It just to make the pearls, and then blended with the other fertilizers in the right way. So what we've done is maybe too much reading, but I also added that we organized ourselves with R&D groups for agriculture for optimized absorption and optimizing crops. So, you know, it's easy to say, I'm just going to throw it in a farmer's field, right? And it sounds good and it looks good, but realistically between us, I'm not providing a critique. It could also be another hidden way of what I call landfill, right? That doesn't look like landfill. We want to avoid those things. So what we're doing is what can go to fertilizer, what quantities, what are the right blends, and optimize that. And we'll start working with the local people with that too.
So can you clarify for me, NSGI, there's a mention of the NSGI route. And
yeah, so that's for the
NSGI,
pyro. Yeah, so that's what I'm discussing with steel people right now. That doesn't mean I can't put a battery one here in Thorold, okay, in a smaller scale. But if the steel people that want to take down their infrastructure to try to become greener allowed me to do that, I can make larger quantities and include resources. Okay, so that was partly what I was checking. So the approach was not to be someone who hurts other people in the industry, but to be a complement to the industry. Okay, so fertilizer, agriculture, the steel guys, we want them to survive. We want them to be greener, but we want them to survive. Can we do something with you, right? So that was the approach, okay? I know it gets confusing because phase 1, you know, you have to start walking. So in Thorold, what we're suggesting is the walking part. You start with battery prep. I'll have a chance to see who steps up in the approach that can take on a role that's a little bit more complex. And then those people will add people, and then people will step up, and we will add hydrometallurgy and pyrometallurgy down the road. But I don't see that I won't be applying for that till maybe late next year, okay? It's all about cash flow and walking. But I do have a lot of people at the table. Go ahead.
Is the NSGI the process I mean,
Mhm.
NSGI is a company, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
It's a holding company for the pads, yes.
Right. So the processes that you would apply for later down the line are using a furnace that is less carbon intensive than a blast furnace. Is
Oh,
that
yes, absolutely. And they could use char. That's the key there. So the news that you heard when it came out in the news, and I'm not trying to talk for other people, they were trying to use Chartex char in the blast furnace to replace pulverized coal. For those less old than me, you know, in the 80s, natural gas was more expensive than thermal coal. So everybody started to convert the energy portion to PCI, which is a fancy way of saying pulverized coal injection, and replace natural gas. But, you know, today that's very bad for CO2, right? So they started trying to do that. The real solution I see with this is making the ferroalloys for the steel industry, like ferromanganese. And for those who know that their cars have gotten lighter over the years, one of the reasons is ultra high strength steel, and that also includes the vanadium. And so those can make the ultra high strength steel, even if it's small quantities. Okay. Too much information because I've been in the steel industry for a long time. I can go from the mine all the way to the coated products, and I've been through all of the steel plants around here, and I know them all by heart. Okay. So that's what's going on in the industry, right? So NSGI is just one technology, one piece. I can still use the orange peel, or believe it or not, artichokes, and do battery recycling for your nickel, cobalt, manganese. Okay. I'll give you a little tidbit just on the table. Cobalt, if you want to precipitate it outright, and the orange peel or the artichoke helps that. Okay. So that's one. And again, that's not St. George's. And SGI is me indirectly. I'm supporting them. And the guy who designed the furnace for all of you is actually in Buffalo, so right around the corner. So that would be the ideal tech center with the steel industry nearby to do it. For the hydro part, the people involved with that were all in Quebec. Okay, like for the lithium technologies. But I don't care where it comes from. It has to be green, it has to be efficient, and it has to be the best one.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from the committee? Linda, you had your hand up a while ago. Was there a question?
No, my hand up was say I would be interested in a tour as well.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks.
When I was in high school, I toured Union Carbide, so I
Oh,
would
there
be
you go.
interested in a tour. Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay, I'm going to go to Mark, has his hand up.
Oh, Mark is on mute as well.
Thanks.
Here we go.
First, thank you, Mr. Chair. Enrico is a very educational and informative discussion. Unfortunately, I didn't get the package in advance, so I don't know what exactly is in there. But my question really is related to waste products and from the process. I'm assuming when you mentioned 97% efficiency earlier, that was specific to alkaline batteries. So then, what sort of waste products are there in terms of solids, liquids, gas form?
Yeah, so the way we're doing this, and I'm really looking forward to showing people, whoever wants to see the lines, why these are much more sophisticated. There really is none, okay? But, you know, you can't say that, okay? Because you're always going to have a bit of dust and things, and it gets dirty with mud or whatever. Does it go back in the process or not? We'll look at that, right? But the objective is to not have any waste for battery prep, okay? So I'm intending to collect all the dust, which is the critical minerals. I intend to collect all the aluminum. I intend to collect all the steel. I intend to collect all the copper, and I intend to collect all the plastic. These vary by battery types, okay? So I could actually tell everybody that I was meeting all of Ontario standards just by collecting the aluminum for lithium iron phosphate and never even processing the lithium and play the game. But that's not the intention here. The intention is to actually have a strategy to evolve to the future batteries of tomorrow. So in the tour, I would also show you how we would address even the future car batteries, which are much larger than your household batteries. And we've already strategized how you layer the shredders to get them to the right size and continue using the lines we're setting up now, for example, so we can break down the future lithium iron phosphate batteries, okay? The other part is not because I don't trust my supplier, but shit happens in real life. So we actually ordered extra dust collectors to help with during commissioning and collect things. And again, I'm not saying I don't trust my suppliers, but I actually have extra fume collectors, which I'm more than happy to show you that are all there. I sent everything from my pilot plant there, and we have all the precipitator equipment and all that. And I may even lend some of my equipment to another tenant in the area that's promoting the copper technology. I've known them since 2015, Destiny Copper, okay? So that's kind of where I'm at, okay?
You had mentioned in your presentation, and I'm not sure which process for which type of battery, but you had mentioned fluoride and chlorine and things like that. So is that going to be?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to show you the equipment. It's all there.
So what happens to that? It just gets recycled or
captured, and then it goes to the right location. We won't do that here. Fluorine, you either neutralizing it or sending it to someone else. Chlorine, you're neutralizing it. Let's be clear, and that's it. So what we have, which nobody talks about, is that there will be zero fumes and zero dust. Okay.
All right, thank you. I appreciate the tour for sure.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mark. Any other questions? Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Chair. I apologize for being late, technical difficulties. Enrico, thanks for the presentation. I'm one of the councillors that sit on the committee. I read in here that you're looking for a letter of support from the city. Why is that required? And I'm sorry if you.
No. There's two reasons that this works. One, you're introduced to what we're up to, and two, that I got delayed partially because I spent a lot of time with engineers looking at different locations in that old pulp and paper mill. And you can't apply for an environmental permit unless I specifically say this is the location and this is my layout and this is what I'm doing there. And it took a while to get that. So here I am sitting with $6 million worth of equipment ready to install and operate, and I don't have the permit. And I need that to get the allocation of batteries from all of the people doing the collections as well, because they're not going to give me the batteries unless that happens. Meantime, I continue to advance in all the other things as well. So like I said, you can come and see, but there's nobody else in Ontario that has $6 million worth of battery preparation equipment ready to go.
But again, I just want to be a little more specific. Why do you need a letter of support from the city, or can you go ahead?
No, I can wait, but I might be only getting it in March of next year, or I might only get it in June of next year. And then the battery allocations for the year might have already been allocated.
Okay. And I guess just one more question, and I'm sure you're aware that council looked at another opportunity in that area a few weeks ago, and there was concern about emissions. Now I'm hearing you talk about furnaces and things like that. Do the residents in the area need to be concerned in any way about emissions from your facility?
No, we'll be substantially less than any other tenant in the area. we will have minimal noise and things, but we'll address all of those and present them. The shredder, even if I turned it on for you, you'll see that it's not that noisy, and if it's in the building, no one will ever hear it, and the rest of it is really not noisy.
And I guess finally, will you be coming to council to do this same presentation?
I'm prepared to do it anywhere. I live locally now, so I'm taking this pretty seriously. I moved here from Montreal.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Longo. I'd just like to expand, if you're going to be going to council, is there any opportunity for you to do some kind of a town hall presentation that would be reaching out to the local residents in the Thorold South area?
I'm going to do whatever's necessary. The people that are moving in, making plate and stuff will be substantially noisier, bigger, and I'm going to be honest, it's just between us. I was even recommended not to buy a house near there because there were going to be a lot of trucks. So I expect that those people will not be happy. It is what it is, right? If you're going to have all those trucks coming in with plate and leaving with products, that'll be pretty noisy for the residents. In our case, we're the closest part to the water of the Welland Canal. We're the furthest part from everywhere, and there is no intention of having anything that would harm anybody. If we were going to hydrometallurgy, I wouldn't put it in what they call BioVeld 2 now today. I would probably put that in BioVeld 1, where it's more amenable for hydro. Pyro, could it go next to Stelco and Nanaco? Could it go next to Dofasco in Hamilton? Could it go next to a power plant or the foundry in Thorold? The answer is yes. We'll look at that when the time comes, but we have not applied for those. Right now, I'm looking at something extremely non-invasive and green for battery prep.
Okay, thank you. I think, well, everybody realizes, that was at one time a very big industrial hub, that whole area from Highway 58 all the way down to Highway 20. And there was probably some pretty nasty industries in there. People have tolerated that for so many years. I think they're not crying because the industry's left, but having said that, the city has ambitious plans on redeveloping that particular area. You've got the Hamilton Oshawa Port Authority has set up there, and the whole goal is to utilize the rail and shipping and highway infrastructure. So as long as we're seeing industries come in that are green, I think the people will be apprehensive, but probably a little bit more receptive. So as long as you're transparent to the people, upfront and honest, we just went through that Northland Power, and there's information's come out in articles in the paper about the peaking plants operating way beyond their 5% promise. So, we just want to make sure that we're going to be offering to the people something that's going to be beneficial to them.
And I appreciate that. And again, transparently, whenever I did financial turnarounds or fixing plants all over the world, a lot of times it was fixing things like that or finding synergies to make things greener, more efficient. I had the chance to visit the other facilities doing this, and that's when I realized that I should be entering the business because there was a greener way and a better way to do this, because people were really just collecting the tipping fees, okay, from a call to recycle and others. And it's not a critique against anybody. Good for them if they can get away with it, make money. What we tried to do is do it in a green way, okay?
Okay.
So that's why I offered to show you the equipment and show you how much better it is.
Okay.
I see a hand up for Linda.
Yeah. Thank you. Linda, you're next.
This maybe not a part of our concern, but I just wondered, what the number of jobs would be available for people in the area too.
Yeah, so battery prep alone, there'll be 3 people per line. There'll be about per shift. And then there's about the same for sorting. And then you've got the warehousing, receiving, shipping. And then once you get into, for example, if we touch pyro, you're looking at 70 jobs. Indirect for that kind of thing is another 3 times that. And for hydrometallurgy, it'll probably be something similar to that. Okay.
But for how many would it be just for the startup of the 80% the alkaline batteries?
So I would start with 1 shift.
Mhm.
So that'd be about 10, but that
Yeah.
would grow into shifts around the clock. And that would grow to 30, not counting all the indirect.
Okay, and they'd be 24/7, an
Yeah.
operation of 24/7.
So I'll start with 1 shift, train them properly, distribute them to a 2nd shift, split them up, have people trained, and then add the 3rd shift as we also grow, because I want to make sure we're doing things right. So for those of you who read that, if you look at the chemistry, it doesn't mean anything to someone, but if you said you were going to fertilizer, that's the standard of what you're getting in Ontario, but you can't have cadmium in an alkaline black mass unless you mix the nickel cadmium battery that got mixed in, right? So if you look at that chemistry, sorting becomes really important, and that's manual. For our case, we want to do this properly. We want to train everybody, and the sorting is really important, and we'll be doing a lot more analysis of samples step by step, just to make sure everything is being done right before going to 3 shifts and then gradually growing it. And that was the idea. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go with John's got his hand up.
Thank you. Just to clarify, when we're talking emissions and we're talking, you're burning char, which is bio waste that's been converted.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can call it the forestry industry, or you can call it rail ties, whatever you can visualize. That's how char is made in the industry. So that's what Char Tech is doing right now.
So when that gets burned as part of a pyrometallurgic process, there are emissions. There are emissions of CO2. But because you're burning waste wood, you get a credit for the CO2, is that correct?
Yeah, so the way the industry works, it's the same thing for pulp and paper. When you cut down a forest and you replant it, you're considered 0 CO2 because the trees will reabsorb CO2. I'm not saying you're not emitting CO2, but even if I emitted the CO2, I would be neutral even if you counted it, because, and that's again further down, like we're only talking about battery prep right now, but as phase 2, I would displace the CO2 that the cement industry is doing, and I can also displace the CO2 in natural gas power plants, or people using natural gas for reheating slabs, for example. Like, doesn't matter if you're called Stelco or DeFasco, you're making slabs, you're reheating them, that gas can be used for that too. So you're displacing that CO2. So what happens is, and I'm more than happy to go through this with any of you and count the CO2, but if I'm also renewable CO2, then I would be negative if I'm using 100% char, for example.
Okay, because I run up against this every time somebody talks about a fuel that's a biofuel. Nobody's planting those trees. We lost an area of trees the size of Ireland in this country this year, and nobody's replanting those trees. So I just want to I'm not challenging your interpretation. I'm just saying, to me, that's not carbon neutral. However, I
Yeah.
understand that the law says it's carbon neutral.
Yeah, so look, we're on the same page, which is, I'm not gonna touch what people are doing. What I would tell you is, if Char Tech is bringing me char and I'm using that and it qualifies, perfect. If I have to build it myself, let's look at what Canada has. Pulp and paper has been under attack because we use less newspapers today. There's locations all around the country that have that infrastructure that we're already doing that. Could that become a source? And the answer is yes. Again, my interpretation, what the law allows you to do, is two different things. All I'm going to say is that my interpretation of it is you're either using like the rail ties, which is complete waste, and you can only count it once after you cut the tree down, turned it into something. The biomass, if you're doing what the old pulp and paper mills used to do, you should be replanting, of course. Okay, so I can't comment for everybody else, but you're absolutely right. There's a lot of abuse, and I don't want to touch what other people are doing. I was just trying to portray what we intend to do.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. I'm going to go with Councillor Harris, got his hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Enrico, just a question about supply. Are these batteries going to come from the region, Ontario, Canada, other countries?
Yeah, so I'm not going to deny that the location was ideal, because I did it and I wanted to see what people who are collecting them on both sides of the border would say to us, and without me probing them. And the first reaction was, shit, you know, we're doing a not so good job in so many places. We would be even interested in bringing in other batteries from other locations, including the US, if that's of interest to you. And I said that's fine. Again, we have to look at what the type of batteries are. I don't want to just start stockpiling things that create a problem. And I'm telling you things that I shouldn't say in a council meeting, but I'm just telling you honestly, there's things that you do in steps, and your alkaline will process, get it out of the way. For those who don't know, the binder that supplies 50% of the fertilizer industry to make the pearls that we were used to seeing for our grass actually comes from Ontario. Okay, it's a group in Ontario that developed it, and they're ready to displace that binder, which is organic to us, and reduce what they send to the States at this point. So it just gives you an idea of how I'm working, trying to work with the local people first, encouraging them secondly, but also trying to advance in a systematic way for the region.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any more questions from any of the committee members? Okay, seeing none. That was a great presentation, very informative, a lot of information for us to digest. And for the people that didn't get the handout, I'll make sure that you do get a copy of it. I'll touch bases with Justin and see if he can fire off a copy to you. It's pretty, it's not really in layman's terms, but it does explain.
Yeah, I apologize, but you know, honestly, I just tried to touch the topics because phase one is really not technical. It's just shredding and breaking things down.
Yeah.
But what can happen? I still remember visiting the site for the first time, just for all of you, and seeing the potential of having a stainless flat facility there in the long term that was greener and better, which is good for the region for what we call high-paying jobs and steady ones, 247 type things. Again, that's because I started in stainless. So just so for you guys to know why I can say things like that, I'm probably the last flat stainless metallurgist in Canada because I was the youngest when I went through the plant. And for those who don't know, when Welland built that in Tracy, Quebec, there was a lot of government funds. But because of the language issues, that plant in Quebec was poorly commissioned. Okay, so I was able to make record profits back in '94, and all those vice presidents got promoted to president before getting fired because of all the bankruptcies that went through all of these things. But all of that's still in my head. I can still bring it back, and I've done that with ThyssenKrupp and Europe and all that, and so far I'm still knowledgeable. The last time I checked.
Okay, thank you. I think the offer for the tour, I think, is a good idea. I'm sure that most of the committee members would be on board for that. You know, you can see firsthand from what you read in your report, and then you go in and have the visual and the explanation as how the process is going to proceed. I'm not too sure how we could set that up. I would suggest probably you would reach out through Justin or Matthew Trenham, the clerk, to let them know when there's a day available you would like to do a tour, and they could reach out to us and see if that's convenient for all of us.
Because I'm local, it's a lot easier for me to be somewhat flexible. The only things that'll hurt is if I'm in a meeting or something.
Sure.
Outside of that, my suggestion is do a poll to see when people are available. If I block it, then no one can take that slot away, and
Okay.
I'll make it happen. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, great. John, you've got your hand up.
Any afternoon.
It can't
All
be
right.
before 10 a.m.
There's one suggestion, but you guys look at it, and it could be easily in the afternoon. The weather's still good, so we're not going to be trouble walking around.
Okay, great. So if there's no further comments or questions from the committee, I'd like to thank Enrico for his presentation. Hopefully, if you do go to council, you know, you've got a good presentation for council, you'll get questions from them. Like I said, we just went through a really hot topic, so I think it's best that the people of that area, the residents of that area, don't get blindsided by.
Oh, you won't have to worry about that. I still believe that if you do something with char and natural gas and then displace the synthetic gas back to a power plant is the better way to do it. And you're still creating way more jobs and industry, but that's just my opinion. But now that I'm local, I can actually have an opinion, so I can say those things, but you guys can feel free to shoot things at me. Everybody around the world does, so, okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next,
Nope. I'm good to go?
Yes, you are. Thank you.
All right.
Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
Before I get into the correspondence, I did mention that we got a new committee member, but I see there's a couple of other names here. Connor McIsaac, who's just come on screen, and Elizabeth Tomeno.
So yeah, Mr. Chair, I can address that as well if you like.
Sure.
But before we get to that, so the plan for this presentation is to gather your comments, the committee's comments, put them into a memo, and then send that with EVSX's letter, looking for a letter of support from council. But unless this committee, it sounded like they might want this to go to council itself, was the thought I'm getting. I'm not sure if there's any discussion about what this committee is thinking they may want to do or suggest.
Oh, so you're looking comments like nay or yay in
more or less, or general thoughts, or you aren't sure yet, you want more information, this should go directly to council, whatever. Yeah, well, you can open up to thoughts, I suppose.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Councillor O'Hare. He's got his hands up for his comments or questions.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to suggest, as Councillor Longo did, that or inquired about, that this should go to council. very important issues will have to be looked at and discussed and presented. And as we have just done this with Northland Power, I think it's important and necessary that it proceed further to council. So that's, I just wanted to support Councillor Longo's suggestion on that as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? I'm going to say I do agree too. That's what I was saying. We just went through a hot button topic, and I think we need to be as open and transparent. You know, if this doesn't go to council and proceeds, and people are, you know, come online later on and watch this particular meeting, they're going to wonder what's going on, because I've gone back and I've watched our own meetings a couple of times just to get caught up on some of the comments that might be made. And I got to say, we've got a lot of people in Thorold that are watching our meetings. We've probably got the highest number of hits of committee meetings. So the public's watching us, and I really appreciate that. I'd like to see more people watching us. That's the whole idea of this committee, is to get the community engaged. So I'm all in favor of a presentation to council, and if there's some kind of a town hall meeting that could be set up that Enrico can put forward to the people. They've had their opportunity to have their say, and at the end of the day, he'll be good to go. Any other comments? Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if anybody else could answer the question for me, but I asked the question twice. Does council need to approve this? And I didn't really seem to think I got a clear answer. Maybe I did, but I didn't pick up on that. And again, that's why, does this even need to come to council? Does council need to give an opinion? If we do, then obviously council and this committee maybe should do a tour beforehand. Maybe we should have public meetings. But again, I didn't get a clear answer. And I don't know if anybody else here got a clear answer to that, and if anybody wants to comment.
I do agree it wasn't clarified, but I do agree that before it goes to council, I think you're right, Councillor Longo, that the council should be included in a tour as well. Did I see anybody else put their hand? Oh, John's got your hand up. Oh, pardon me, John, can I go to Mark first?
Yep.
Yeah, John was first, but I'll just be quick
Okay.
to answer Councillor Longo. He did not answer the question, other than he mentioned something about a permit.
Yes.
So what permit is he looking for? It wasn't clear.
What, that was Ministry of Environment, wasn't it?
Well, I think he was referring to a permit from the city. But I don't know. It wasn't clear.
Okay. Okay, thanks for that. I'm going to go with John now.
So what I understood was that he was, excuse me, I'm chewing a cough drop. Sorry about that. That the permit was an environmental permit.
Mhm.
That's what I got from that.
Yes. Yeah.
And that a letter of support from the city was to support the application for the permit, the environmental permit. I may be wrong about that, but that's what I understood him to say. And I agree that, you know, a tour would probably help us solidify a point of view, have a better understanding of what the processes are. And I still want to tease out, you know, what's going to be the impact on the community of the processes. And if it's as clean as he purports, then maybe that's a good thing. But what's coming out of the smokestack? And if it's carbon dioxide and only carbon dioxide, and it's as a result of burning char, that means that it's carbon neutral. You know, that goes some way to support his argument. But what else is coming out of the smokestack? He's dealing with heavy metals, mercury, lead, you know, cadmium. So I would just like more clarification on that.
Okay, thanks, John. Yeah, myself, I mean, we just listened to a lot. You know, I've got a copy of the research report. I'm sure that if I get into the plant and have a tour, I'm going to have questions because I'll have had time to digest all this information we've been given. I'm certainly in support of members of this committee doing the tour. I would suggest that council also be invited for the tour, whether they show up or not, that's their prerogative. But I certainly would hope that they would take the opportunity to be involved in this. I'm going to go with Councillor Longo, had his hand up now.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to kind of clarify my position here on this committee, the way I look at it, at least, just so people aren't wondering why there may or may not be a lot of comments from myself on this committee. As a member of council, if it does come to council and I need to make a decision, I don't want to have my voice on this committee influence council's decision. I'm not sure if that makes sense to people, but so for Northland, for example, I sat very quiet. I'm not sure if you noticed, so did Councillor O'Hare. I thought it was best not to try to influence this committee in any way and make my feelings known. I really don't have a feeling on this one yet because I arrived late to the meeting. There's a lot of information to digest, but again, I think it's best this committee does, I think, like we did with Northland, talk it over, come up with a you know, a united front, whatever this committee feels that is, and present that in writing to council. But I don't want to seem like I'm not being held accountable or being a chicken here. But I think my role is served on council more than it is on this committee. So I just hope that makes sense, and I wanted to clarify.
Yeah, thank you very much. I understand and I respect the position you take. Yes, you are not on this committee to sit there and pound your fist and say, yay, we're going to go forward, or no, we're not. Yes, you're observant. Your role also is to make sure that we operate in a functional way where we're operating within the guidelines as set out for councils and committees to function. So yeah, your point is taken. Thank you very much. Councillor O'Hare.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to point out that should we have a tour that involves a committee and council, we have to be careful there for a couple of reasons. One is that we can't have quorum with council, and that if we do arrange something with council, we also have to be aware that council members work during the day. And so we'll have to select a time when the most number of councillors would be able to attend should they choose to attend. So there's a couple of points just to keep in mind.
Thank you. Yeah, you pointed out something there that I'm going to just expand upon what you said. And I think if we do go on a tour, I think the committee and council should take the tour separately. I'm just expanding on what Councillor Longo has talked about, and I think our conversations should be kept separate. So are you okay with what the direction we're moving in, Justin?
Yes. So I think that the general feeling is that this should go to council, is what I'm getting from this committee, that it should go directly and not necessarily your comments attached, but this should go directly to council. And for a tour, I just want to echo what Councillor O'Hare mentioned, that, yeah, there is questions of quorum and how many are there, and you can't have committee business taking place while you're there, etc. So we'd have to clear some of that up with the city clerk as well.
Okay. I think we've hammered this to death now. Is there any other any other final comments? Okay, thank you. Now we can move on. Before I get into the correspondence, I did say I wanted to introduce a new committee member we have, Mark Freeman. Mark has provided us with information over the last maybe 2 months or so regarding the Northland Power presentation, and it was great to have a citizen so deeply involved in an issue like this. And I have ended up meeting Mark with John Hamilton when we went over the letters that we were putting forward to make sure that we weren't duplicating and putting forward redundant opinions. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Mark, and he can give us a little bit of an introduction to himself.
Sure, thank you, Chair. It's been so long since I've, as John said, spoken in public or I've prepared a resume, but I did pull something together here, so I'm just going to read it quickly for your information. So from an education perspective, I do have a computer engineering degree, as well as certifications in project management and process management, and have taken over the years a number of accounting and financial management courses, which I needed from my job. So I basically spent about 25 years working in IT and telecom in a variety of different management positions, typically involving my expertise, which was project management, process management, and financial performance management. So the point of saying this is what I've basically done through my entire working life has been working with subject matter experts, whether they be engineers, software developers, accountants, or what have you. And I've always looked to distill their message for management, for them to understand and to make decisions. So I think that sort of fits into a role that I can play here. All that said, the reason I'm really here is that over the past decade or so, I've really come to understand how precious Earth is and how special it is, being the only planet in the known universe that has life, life that is not just beautiful but diverse, and also extremely important to our valuable ecosystems that we all need to live. All life, not just humans. And coming to the realization that if we don't change our way pretty quickly, human activities will eventually result in the sixth mass extinction that this planet has ever known. And we just can't let that happen. So that's why I'd like to join this meeting and contribute as much as I can.
Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate you reaching out to us a few months ago and expressing an interest in joining the committee. And I'm glad that the city bumped up recruitment for committee members, because they were going to wait a few more months, but I think they realized they had more vacancies on other committees that they should address that. Looking forward to working with you. Does anybody have any comments or questions to put forward to Mark?
Welcome.
Thank you.
Really glad to have you here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on. Correspondence. The first item here, the CLKC 69-2023, was that motion that I put forward at the last meeting regarding the off-leash dog park. I'm going to ask for that to be deferred. There's questions that I have regarding how the original motion got reworded, but I would need Tara O'Toole to discuss this with to get some clarification. So I'd like to defer this item to next month's meeting. Hopefully Tara will be available for that particular meeting. Moving on to set. Oh.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, that motion has already gone to council on September 12th and passed. Just so, yeah, perfect.
Yeah, there was just some talk I wanted to have on that, on how it got reworded and what the intent was of the original motion, and some other questions related to the comments that the residents had at that particular PIC and how that motion came about that I originally put forward. So just some discussion that I want some clarification at the next meeting. John?
I have my hand up. Is this an appropriate time to once again mention the dog waste problem and the dog waste potential solution, the proposal that I drafted, and how would we get that to either staff or council to consider?
I think we can probably bring this up in the same, under the same item at the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because this was all going to be environmental impact study discussion.
Roger
Any other
that.
Okay. Next item, 7.2 CAO 12/2023, and this was the Northland Power Council request for a letter of endorsement that did not pass at special council meeting on September 19th, 2023. I just want to say kudos to council for listening to the constituents of the area, the number of letters and emails that you got from them. It was very evident at that particular meeting, that council meeting, that you all did your homework. I mean, the questions that were being asked, asking the presenters questions based on the information they were putting forward. I do want to say, Councillor Longo, you really set the bar when you stood up and said what you said about representing the people, and that the people of Thorold deserve better. Councillor Sentence made it very clear that council was not shutting the door to this company on any future proposals, that if they came back with solar, wind, or battery storage, they'd be more than willing to listen to. So hopefully Northland Power goes back to the table and says, we can come up with some other idea in the future, but at least we know council's position. We know the city of Thorold's position on this particular issue. So kudos to council and the presenters that were at that particular meeting. Any comments or anything on that? Okay, seeing none. Let's go to committee business. 8.1 working group update. Do we have anything from you at all, John, with Tree Canada?
Just the fact that their application process opens this month and goes through December. Did we get a motion to council to direct staff to proceed with a Tree Canada application?
Did we?
That's a no.
Just a minute.
Councillor O'Hara has his hand up.
Okay, yes, I see. What it was is in the minutes. Councillor O'Hare noted he will bring a notice of motion at the next council meeting concerning directing staff to apply for the Tree Canada grant program. Councillor O'Hare?
Yeah, that notice of motion wasn't brought forward yet. My apologies.
Okay, so we can
Yeah.
assume that that will happen at the next council meeting?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
John,
Thank you.
excuse me, Mr. Chair, through you to John. When's the application due?
We have the application period is October through December.
Okay.
They
All right.
then announced in March for projects
Okay.
to go forward in May and June.
So we can start some of the work between us, but we'll then address it to council and seek approval for that.
I sent you pictures, Joe and Tim.
Oh,
I
yeah.
emailed yesterday. I walked through the park, through JC's park, and all three of the catalpa trees have got verticillium wilton, are dead on arrival, essentially. So I'm just really eager to try to latch onto some money to do some discrete projects, and this would be an opportunity to do that.
Okay, thank you. Any other work group? No, Leslie's not at this meeting, so I know we got a boulevard planting initiative going on. We're going to look at some outstanding bylaws that we might be able to utilize to create one for Thorold. Councillor O'Hare, you got your hand up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Were we going to add the 7.4, the Lakeview tree planting in today, or are we going to talk about that?
That I was going to go after 8.3
Okay.
when through committee business.
Okay.
You're talking about the Lakeview, right?
Correct.
Yep. So there's no other working group update. We'll move on to 8.2. This is new to me, Environment Committee website. This is supposed to be an update from staff. Justin?
Yes, so at the last meeting, it was brought up, I think, by Ron about possibly getting a website for environment and so forth. So I just wanted to make sure I got an answer for you. So I got a very formal answer I'll read here, and then I'll give you a less formal answer. So one second. The city's corporate communication division supports priorities and projects approved and directed by council, including recommendations from committees and boards. The city's active on 5 social media channels, including YouTube, to help support communication goals and campaign reach. So my less formal answer is, in the last meeting, it was brought up that Heritage has their own website, but that is going to not be the case soon. They are eventually going to be shutting that down and moving everything over to the city website. And the city's corporate strategy is to basically just have one central website in the future and not have separate things, is basically the answer that I got.
Okay, so eventually there will be a spot on the city website for any of the committees that want to be on the city website, or will they all be on the website?
I don't know about that. It's more the stuff that's currently on that Heritage website, those will be incorporated into the city website.
Right.
But as to separate pages for committees, stuff that I can't answer. I can't answer that.
Okay, I see. We're gonna have to work on that to see how we can kind of get some type of social media presentation that reaches out to the people rather than just our meetings. John, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to make the same comment essentially as you just made, Mr. Chair, and that is that one of our mandates is to engage the public. And the only way you can engage the public these days is through their phones. So some sort of presence on the city's website, be it a separate page or something like that, but we need to be able to reach out to people, and that happens electronically these days. Sad to say.
Yeah. So I mean, you can even go as far as if we do have a presence on the city website, there could be an environment committee newsletter that could be attached to that, so people could be kept up to date what we're actually doing.
Mm-hmm. So
Okay.
for instance, your Earth Day presentation production, that sort of information needs to be broadcast far and wide if we want to engage volunteers in tree planting or whatever we're undertaking. And of course, it's all part of the city's efforts to improve things. But I'm really trying to think of ways that we can engage people at large, especially young people.
Sure.
And so however we have to wrangle that, I'd really like to wrangle that.
Okay. Yeah. As far as like the Earth Day presentation that I did to council, I mean, they approved it. I'm waiting for staff to get back to me so we can start discussions on that and lay the groundwork for how it's going to work. And then at that point, I can start reaching out to certain vendors. I've already got a list of vendors that are more of the information delivery type rather than vendors that are selling products. But there's volunteers that will have to be required to help put this all together. So hopefully the city will reach out to me soon enough that we can get this going. And I think when it's down the road, third Saturday of April of next year, the city is going to be promoting that particular event heavily through social media. So I think that'll be a launching point for us to get the public engagement on our committee. And I think at that point, we'll be able to rope in a lot of people to understand what we're actually trying to do. So, keep my fingers crossed on that. Any other comments on that particular item, the website? Mark?
Yeah, so just thinking, I'm not sure how it works here, right? So is there any avenue that we have to publicize something of importance, not everything that we talk about, through the actual media as opposed to social media? Through Thorold Today or
Yeah, there's Thurl today. You know, Bernard Landsbergen is really good. He's really trying to be involved in the community. The city of Thorold does have a social media site that they will advertise certain events, and certainly I don't see why they wouldn't promote something that the Environment Committee is putting on, because they certainly promoted the Canada Day event in Beaver Dams Park with the Heritage Committee designating Lock 25 in the park. That was heavily promoted. So if we've got something before the April Earth Day, you know, it's always worth reaching out. I believe it's Megan Burbeck is the social media coordinator. So we'll keep that in mind if something is of importance that we want to get out to the public.
all right, thanks.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay, seeing none. The next item, 8.3, Lake Gibson Corridor Task Force Master Plan. This also is something that I believe Tara O'Toole would probably report on. She is the staff rep on that that committee. So I'm going to defer that to the next meeting. There's some questions that I'm going to ask. I myself applied for that committee, and I was accepted for a position. So I'm looking forward to working on that committee. There's a lot of overlap between the Environment Committee and Lake Gibson Corridor Task Force. So I'm looking forward to that. Let's go on.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes.
So just, I don't have much to add to that, of course, but at the last Lake Gibson meeting, they are trying to put forward to get the area mapped.
Yes.
And then have that kind of used for future plan ideas. I feel like the mapping is step one before other things will be done, is the way I've understood it.
So, okay, yeah, that's, thank you, Justin. I could point out that I believe they were setting up a date, kind of like a little walking date, October 11th, is it around PM?
That might be changing,
Okay.
because there's been some changes with a member leaving and you're joining and so forth. So
Yes.
Tara will, I think, go look to change that. I think
Okay.
that might be coming in the coming days. I have to follow up with her on Tuesday about that.
Yeah, I believe that was Tony was going to conduct the walk. He's no longer with the committee, so.
So I think that is going to be changing and probably not going to be happening for October at least, but I'll have to get more info from Tara.
Okay, it is an expansive area that goes from Ellenberg all the way through
Yes.
Melsward, you know, DeQ out to Short Hill. So it's a mapping plan that's put in place to identify the different property owners within the area and what may be land that might be available for the city to procure, map out for future park areas, eventually leading to a designation. I know that's been on the books for that committee for like 30 years, trying to get it designated as some kind of a provincial park, but it looks like they're trying to kickstart it again to get something going. Okay, thanks, Justin.
Yep.
Now we go to 8.4, and this was the Lakeview Cemetery tree planting initiative that was mentioned at last month's meeting, roundtable discussions between Councillor O'Hare and Kerry O'Hare from the NPCA. So I'm going to turn it over to Councillor O'Hare for that update.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on September 27th, we had a tree planting at Lakeview Cemetery. Thanks to the generous donation of NPCA's trees, we had about 100 trees donated to the city of Thorold. And we were able to find a place to plant the bulk of them at the cemetery, where on that day we had participation from Niagara College and the Eco Restoration Program students under Professor Andrea, who came out with them. That was about 40 students. And these are post-grad students, by the way. They already have a degree and are just adding to their education. So they were very mature students who came and arrived that day to do the planting. Quite experienced. We had a task in front of us with a goal to plant 300, and we certainly neared that number. And it was quite amazing to watch. It took place with 2 shifts from 10 to 12 and 12 to 2, so 2 20 student groups at a time, and away they went. And at the end of the day, we had, as I said, just under 300 trees planted. I was out yesterday taking a walk around and just flagging some of the trees, because we want to ensure that they're not run over by the mower. And there's a lot of tall grass back there as well. So every tree has been flagged. If anyone wants to go see them, just you can drive your car to the furthest point, to north end of the cemetery, the new cemetery. You can park there and just walk almost to Walkers, the dividing line between Walkers and the cemetery. And you'll see an expanse of newly planted trees. And I'm happy to say that they've been watered twice since planting, which is very key and important in the beginning. Of course, we had beautiful rain last night, so that's great, and more to come. So I think we're off to a good, healthy start for them. It is also going to be undertaken by staff. And I should mention Scott out at the cemetery, who is just so helpful and knowledgeable, not only with trees, but with the care and the maintenance of the cemetery, and his staff, and they're doing a wonderful job. So we will be planting about 250 more. That's going to be on the community tree planting day. That's October 28th. We don't have a specific time yet. I'm going to suggest that it's going to be somewhere around 10:30 in the morning. We will be looking for about 35 to 50 volunteers. And the NPCA, thanks to Kerry, is creating on their website a sign-up sheet, so that it can be advertised once we meet that number of volunteers. And the reason for setting a target of volunteers, which is 35 to 50, is so that we don't have 100 volunteers and it's over in a 10-minute, 15-minute period. So that's just through Kerry's experience with multiple tree plantings. That's how they like to do it. And I'm quite certain that we're going to reach that initiative of reaching that many volunteers. On that day, the trees will all be laid out. There'll be shovels available, and we usually set up some mulching stations, some soil and water and munchie stations. So that's on October 28th, probably taking place mid-morning to late morning and for a few hours.
Good. Thank you very much. It was a great initiative, and too bad Carrie isn't here to accept the kudos too. But she's out at Balls Falls right now, setting up for a 4-day weekend with the MPCA, hosting the Balls Falls Thanksgiving event. And thank you again. And John, I'll pick you up at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
You won't have to walk through the tunnel. Okay, thank you. That's it for committee business. Let's go to, any questions for Councillor O'Hare on that? Okay, seeing none. Let's go to roundtable discussion. So let's start with you, John. Anything to add for roundtable? Oh, wait a minute. No, pardon me. I should go to Mark first as the new member.
Just looking forward to these going forward, just get my feet wet. Is that the right thing to say? That doesn't sound right. Just getting engaged and looking forward to contributing.
Yeah, yeah. Anything about last night?
Well, yeah, I was wondering, yeah, so last night, Joe and I attended an informal gathering of one of the local environmental groups, 50 by 30 Niagara. And we met up in St. Catharines, actually. Just without getting into the details, we talked about a lot of things, but really what we're looking forward to is finding a way to make progress in eliminating natural gas in buildings going forward. So we're brainstorming those ideas. There's a handful of municipalities in British Columbia who have done this. But there's other things we talked about as well. And we had a pretty good turnout. We actually had 3 people from the Indigenous community show up and talk to us as well about that. We always, when we think about doing things, we seem to continue the status quo, and that we need to think more about reducing our consumption and being more sustainable in everything we do. So Herb and I are just actually talking about writing up some notes on more notes about the meeting. But specifically, he's looking to leverage, and I need to find more information about it, the Niagara Climate Change Action Network, which I believe the city councilors are part of, and an upcoming community energy plan meeting on October 25th. So that's something that we want to understand better as well and see if we can contribute to that.
Yep. Yeah, it was good. Thank you very much, Mark.
Okay.
Gonna go with John.
So I don't have anything to discuss particularly, but I have a number of issues that I'd like to bring forward to the committee for future consideration.
Sure.
So one of those is tree planting, which is going to be a continuing effort. Something that I first noticed when I moved to Thorold is that there's a huge subpopulation that sits in their cars and idles for hours at a time in parking. I'm a pedestrian. So, and you've heard me say this before, as a pedestrian, I spend a lot of time in parking lots because the first thing that's plowed and the shortest distance between 2 points is through 7 parking lots. People sit and idle in their vehicles for, we arrived 20 minutes early to pick up the kid from the dance class. So there's a line of us sitting out there idling. People idle all the time. And I made the comment when I first moved here to a local merchant. I said, I don't understand all these people sitting outside idling. He said, oh, they're in the laundromat. And I said to him, where I come from, that's illegal. And he said, well, that sounds like a big city. As if it doesn't matter if you idle if you don't live in a big city. So I would like to know what the city's idling bylaw says and whether or not that is something that needs to be reviewed. So that's one thing. Green parking lots. There are all kinds of ways to green parking lots. I would really like us to start looking at that as a way of, coming up with some recommendations for council about how we go about doing that. I don't know that we've ever had an assessment of the municipal carbon footprint, what that is, and what the plans are for getting to net zero, or even 50 by 30 for Thorold as a municipality. So that's something else I'd like to just put on a future agenda. Litter, gotta love the litter. I couldn't believe it when I first moved here, just how much there is. I don't understand how people are allowed to open their car door, dump their garbage in a parking lot, and drive away with no penalty. I just don't get it. So litter is a huge issue. It's all plastic. It all ends up in the water course, and we know where that goes. It's just, we know what it does. So that's my rant for this morning.
Okay, very good. Well, so some good points that we're going to have to talk about in the future. put them on the agenda and see where we can move with them. I'm sure that you won't get an argument about any of the points you made. I mean, it's getting people to change their ways, and that's extremely difficult.
Well, I've made this observation before to Councillor O'Hare, and that is that I'm a big believer in signage. And if you look around Thorold, the only thing people are concerned about is parking.
Yeah.
That's the only signage you see. You'll see the occasional "don't leave your dog dirt" here, but you know, that's usually where people leave their dog dirt. But there's no information out there about not littering, what the fine is for a first offense, et cetera, et cetera. You know, it's just people are not confronted with the reality of what they're doing and the fact that it is, in fact, against the law. You know, and so what's the point of having bylaws if we don't enforce them? And if we have bylaws that are unenforceable, why don't we get some that are enforceable?
Yeah.
And I know litter is a common problem throughout Niagara. I was on Glendale yesterday, and we were driving up onto the 406, and there were Tim Hortons cups strewn all the way along the ramp on both sides. It's just, ugh. And it's all plastic.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, thank you for your comments.
My rant.
Councillor O'Hare, anything for roundtable?
Yes. A big apology, Mr. Chair. I've been going through my notes and wondering, wow, how come Joe's jumping all over the place and what's going on? I realized I printed out a couple of days ago, Friday, September 1st agenda. So I went back into my emails and searched, and yes, of course, I have the one that I should have printed out, plus the notes that I said I didn't receive. So, of course, I didn't receive them a month before they were sent out. That was my own silly error, so I apologize for that. And that's it.
It's hard to believe it's October.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Longo, anything to add to roundtable?
Thank you, Chair. Again, I apologize for being late, and I just wanted to welcome Mark to the committee. We've spoken on the phone a few times. We've emailed. The first opportunity I had to see what Mark Freeman looked like was at the Northland Power presentation. So again, welcome. And I also want to just commend all of you on the committee who actually were there and spoke that evening, and others who aren't here today who spoke. You know, when it was all said and done, we have to think on our feet when we're up there. Councillor O'Hare can attest to that. And I singled out one individual that evening, Mr. Morley, but I just want to let you all know who spoke there that what you did was great that night, and I really appreciate it. But timing and so on only allowed me to go in one direction. So again, really appreciate what you did. Welcome to the committee, Mark, and thank you all who took part in that meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Longo. I did mention earlier there was a couple of people that are showing up here. This Connor McIsaac and Elizabeth Germano. Are they committee members now?
No, Connor is a new planner with the city, and
Okay.
I brought him in just in case there was any questions about Lake Gibson, although him and I discussed earlier, we don't have all the information yet.
Okay.
And Elizabeth is a planning student with the city as well, sitting
great.
in.
Oh, nice to meet you. Hope we see you in future meetings.
Thank you.
Would you like to add anything to our roundtable discussion?
No, I guess I can introduce myself if it's helpful, maybe. Just been sitting kind of watching everything happen. So my name's Connor McIsaac. I'm the newest development planner with the city. Been here almost a month now. Previously to joining the city, I was working in the consulting company in downtown St. Catharines, working in the planning and engineering sector, mostly for municipal infrastructure. So I was doing many environmental assessments, which are kind of, I guess, relevant to this committee for infrastructure all over Ontario, including a couple here in Thorold. So yeah, I'm excited to be able to get more involved in the committee and the city as a whole.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we'll see more of you. Looking forward to that.
Thanks.
Elizabeth, did you want to?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a fourth year student at the University of Waterloo. I'm taking planning as my major, and at Waterloo, actually, my the faculty of planning is within the Department of Environment. So I've been kind of focusing a lot on that. So it's definitely interesting to hear everything that's going on with Thorold in terms of the environment and climate change. So yeah, I'll be here till December. That's the end of my term. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Looking forward to possibly you engaging in some of the conversation in this committee. We're relatively new. I mean, this committee was born through Councillor Longo's initiative. So we came on board late January, early February, I think was our first meeting. So we're moving along. You know, we've got initiatives going on. The city is involving us in more projects, capital works projects that are involving environmental assessments. So we're getting our feet wet. You know, we're learning and we're moving. I don't think we've had any stumbling moments, but it's getting interesting. So thank you. I don't have anything to add for the roundtable. So the next meeting will be held on November 3rd, 2023 at 10 a.m. And there no being further business, this meeting is adjourned, and enjoy your Thanksgiving weekend, everybody.